We're going to break down some of the farthest throws in track and field history that happened in the last 2 weeks. The NCAA is being shaken up with new faces and some unfortunate injuries leading into this year's national championship. And the debate around wind in the discus throw continues as World Athletics challenges the marks at Ramona, Oklahoma. All this and more on this week's Throw Show. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of The Throw Show. I am of course your host Jason, joined as always by the People's Champ, the head throws coach of youth development at Throws University and Garage Strength, Coach Sam Weeks.
What's up?
Sam, we're going to get right into it today. Last episode, there's kind of a lull period in professional track and field and sort of the collegiate scene. We were prepping for the conference championship, waiting for the Diamond League season to start. So we mostly covered the high school kids. This day, outside of your athletes, is going to be all college and professional marks. Some of the biggest throws in history have occurred in the last 2 weeks. Like when they started the 2026 season off in the Diamond League, athletes were ready to pop off, and pop off did they. As we look at our first throw of the day, and Sam, we've been talking about this for 2 years now on the Throw Show. We've been waiting for that next woman to take up the mantle of Valarie Adams as the next 21-meter shot putter, and we now have our answer as Jessica Schilder out of the Netherlands has thrown 21.09 at the China Diamond League to be the first woman since Valarie Adams, since I believe 2012, to throw 21 meters. Jessica is the 2025 world champion from Tokyo. You watched this throw. I've watched this throw so many times. What do you think of her technique on this throw? And what do you think of another woman finally breaking the 21-meter barrier?
Yeah, I mean, it's like this weird paradox where it's like, I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I feel like Jessica Schilder has been the talk of the town the last, year and a half, maybe 2 years, amongst, the big three. But she's definitely taking a step forward the last, year and a half, having such dominant marks and, being last year's champion. I feel like she's just been, I don't want to say a dark horse, but just kind of giving me that dark horse energy where it's I'm here too. I can do it. And, she's the first one to go over 21. I just feel like just the last few performances and just everything stacking up, once again, it doesn't surprise me that she's the first one. But obviously, my pick was Chase to be the first one, with Chase throwing 20.95 last year at Ironwood. I felt like that was the closest to being 20, hitting a 21 mark. But, we have Jessica here just absolutely going crazy, just going bonkers and just hitting it. And this is kind of off topic, but just, dude, she looks so jacked. Dude, look at her back, bro. It's just jacked. And it's one of those things where it's that is a clear indicator, I'm in really good shape. Obviously, she's been, phenomenal the last year and a half, and this is the result of that.
I mean, speaking of being jacked, I know Dane did a video on this on his social media several months ago, where she was doing hang cleans at 110 kilos for 12 reps.
Yeah.
Now, she was getting a bounce off her thigh, but that's still a woman cleaning 100. That's still moving 110 kilos very, very fast as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
For over 10 reps.
Yeah, effortlessly.
That's not normal.
I remember watching the video and I thought it was a loop, and it's it's not a loop.
No, it's legitimately it took her 45 seconds to do the whole lift.
Yeah. Nah, dude, but just movement wise, yes, her left is a little bit deep, but it's one of those things where it's she does everything else so phenomenal that she can get away with, having a slightly deeper left at the front.
So here's my question about that before we get on to the next thrower. This is a very consistent thing with her. Mm-hmm. At this point, I don't think it's even a correction that she's trying to make or a coach is trying to make. I think she feels more comfortable probably throwing like that, and they've just leaned into it. Is this where, as a coach, at what point do you take your perception of what conventional technique is and then just run with how the athlete wants to move.
Yeah, I think results are going to be the biggest indicator of that.
Yeah.
If, you have an athlete who has a unique style that, deviates a little bit from, like, the technical model a tad bit. Now, it can't be anything crazy, but, deviates a little bit, but they are getting good performances.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's like, okay, we kind of have to just roll with the punches, do what we can, make sure that everything else is up to par, and then, see what happens. So, yes, in theory, like, it's not ideal, but if you can make it work, you don't got to fix you don't have to fix it immediately.
Yeah.
You can kind of just let it be and then try to tweak little things to just make sure that everything else is dialed in.
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, it's working for her. She's won championships throwing like this, and she became the first woman in over 10 years to throw 21 meters.
First rotational athlete, too.
At first rotational,
on the women's side.
Honestly, forgot that, too. She is the first woman spinner to ever throw 21 meters. Everyone else before was a glider. And from my personal opinion, there's only been one thrower who's actually thrown 21 meters who was clean. And that was the last person to throw 21 meters.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. You can debate that in the comments. That's fine. I think that's an opinion that a lot of people share. But yeah, I think this is an incredible throw. What a great way to start the season. We're starting off with fireworks.
Absolutely. Just a whole bang.
And if you want to talk about some fireworks, man, oh my God. We thought that Jessica's throw was going to be the talk of the throw show going into here. But this may have been topped already.
Yeah.
And that's Ziyi, the world junior record holder who we've been talking about for, I think, the last 2 years. Like, she broke the world junior record when she was 15 years old. Mm-hmm. I think she's just turned 18 or she might still be 17. But we're talking like a matter of a couple months. Became the number 2 woman javelin thrower all time behind Barbara Spotakova. I think she's 20 centimeters short of the world record, 71-74, round one.
Round one, yeah.
And Jumpman, if you're familiar with that YouTube channel, he's very similar to Total Running Productions. He does video essays on performances in track and field. He made a video about this, and he kind of was tongue-in-cheek in his title and thumbnail, basically saying she retired after the throw. She stopped throwing after round one. It's clear that she's probably dealing with some sort of minor injury. That's very common among javelin throwers. Even if you throw the javelin correctly, you can hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. So she only did one throw. This was it. Called it. Her coach called it. It's only May, and we're seeing an 18-year-old who has. So yes, it is. She is 18. She's an 18-year-old who has another year as a junior, throwing just short of this senior world record. You have more javelin experience than me, but like even I can understand, like, if you're just a track and field fan, forget throws fan, this is a big freaking deal.
Yeah, this was a massive toss.
What are your thoughts on not only the performance, but I also want to know your take on her technique, and also just put in perspective for the people at home that she's 18.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, when I saw this, my jaw dropped. I was just like 71. I was on the Throws You page, and I was just looking at it, and I'm just seeing everything on my news feed, and I was just like,
yeah.
Like, we knew she was a phenomenal talent, right? Yeah. We've seen it for the last couple years, having marks at, 65, 64, some of these marks that, could have won last year's world championship.
Yeah.
And it's like, we knew that she was, on the verge of being great, but to add, I think 6 meters roughly to what we thought was great then.
I'm trying to remember what her PR was before then. It was like 66, 67?
Somewhere around there.
Still really far.
Yeah.
Like,
and to go even further, round one at this Diamond League is absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
Absolutely bananas. And, to answer like technique question, I think even if you didn't know much about, javelin or technique, just looking at the velocity of the release, like, yo, that's something great. Like, all of the best throws in the javelin all have just phenomenal velocity out of the hand.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell, like, oh, like, they hit that. Like, everything is driving into the finish. And then, obviously, like, with the broadcast, you can tell when, like, it's a far throw. And this just gives me that energy where it's like she just hits it, and you just have this like sense of like, yeah, that's the one.
So to kind of even put this in perspective for like non-jav throwers, but like, you know, shot putters, discus throwers, even hammer throwers, I think the one thing you're going to see in every throwing event, and I see it so clear as day here, it just seemed like she is in her power position and her delivery phase forever. Like, but clearly still moving extremely fast. But like the time that she's on the ground to delivering the javelin through the point, through her left foot on the ground, to me, it's like, that's, at least from a layman's perspective, that's when I notice whether or not a throw for javelin is going to be super, super far versus like, you know, maybe not as far. Like anytime I see a 90-meter throw in the men's javelin, they're hitting a position like that.
Yeah. They're working through double support. Their layback is super long, and they just get the longest pull on the javelin. Obviously, got to throw through the point, but it's like when you watch this, you can see, like you said, she's down in double support, and then she just gets the longest pull on the finish, and that's where that velocity does come into play.
If you were her coach, would you have done this? Would you have made the same
100%.
call?
100%.
One and done?
Yeah, one and done. Like you said, you know, javelin is one of those events where you do put a lot of strain on the elbow. Now, obviously, these guys are the best of the best, and they have really good recovery protocols, and they know how to take care of their body, but it's still, you know, there's a lot of wear and tear on the arm. So I think with, you know, what she did on that first attempt, it's like, yeah, maybe there was more, but there's plenty of the season left.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add, you know, for the perspective on here is like, she's 18. How far she can go, it's so hard to tell because I feel like we've seen other jav throwers throw far young, but then maybe like injury happens and it just like stalls them for years. So I agree with you. I think this was the right call, especially because she is already taped up, so she might be having some little nagging thing. It might feel small now, but when you're putting 71 meters levels of force into your arm, then we're not talking maybe a potentially small injury at that point.
Yeah.
But I think just to kind of like add on to that, like, dude, the Chinese women's team right now is insane, and they're stocked with young talent. Especially like, you know, they had the women hammer thrower who threw 78 meters already, and she medaled at the past World Championships, and she's like 17.
Yeah.
So the Chinese women team, they have a very young, but oh my gosh, very competitive team, and we might be seeing like a dynasty forming in terms of a country and the depth of their throw squad.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see. So Jessica's throw happened in Shanghai, and Jan's throw happened in Xiamen. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Dude, these Chinese diamond leagues have had massive results all over the place. And we're going to continue with that as we see Valarie Ziyi continue her winning ways on the pro circuit, going 68.95 to open up her Diamond League season. She had a rough start to the year in Ramona for the first comp. She then went on to throw 73 meters again in the second comp. But that was her first loss in 2 years. But it seems like Val is now back to doing Val things. 68.95 to take the victory here. And honestly, we even had some throwers here who were first-time Diamond League competitors. Erica Beisel, I think, went 64 meters. She was the D2 national champion, D2 record holder. So it's really cool to see how the women in the U.S. are also getting these opportunities to compete at these big meets. But Val is continuing to dominate the Diamond League. What do you see on her technique here? And what do you think of Val's potential for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I feel like this throw here is more characteristic of what we think of, you know, as Val. I think those early Ramona meets just weren't quite what we envision. Obviously, she had a lot of stuff, you know, outside of throwing, outside of track kind of going on, you know, with her marriage and all of that. So, like, I do think that kind of played, you know, a position into that. And, you know, being at that, no, it wasn't the same Ramona week, but just, you know, kind of just being what it is, it was one of those things where it was like, it just wasn't that day, you know. It wasn't that weekend. Obviously, she did run it back and threw further, but just initially, it just wasn't that day. But I feel like looking at this toss, like, this is more consistent of, you know, the undefeated Val that we've been seeing for the last couple years now. I think I saw a news thing saying that she won this meet by like 4, maybe 3 meters. So I think, having a little time off, kind of just doubling down on what needs to be done with her technique. I feel like her and, Coach Sion, really kind of did. And obviously she was prepared for this competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's not too much less to say. Val's just back to being Val. And it'll be interesting to see how the women that are coming up, women like Sierra, Jackson, Erica Beisel, as I mentioned earlier, how they're going to change the landscape. And of course, we have our own teammate, Gabby Jacobs, like how it's changing the landscape of not only international women's discus, but also just in the U.S. Because now those spots are being taken up. And I think the depth is just, it's getting really, really nuts. And, Val can only be this dominant for so long before someone starts really knocking on the door of challenging her. And now we go back to the Shanghai Diamond League, and the winner here was actually Kristjan Che. Kristjan Che competed in Ramona as well, where he broke his national record going 72.60 plus. Comes here in stadium, no wind, over 70.50, 70.58. So Che is now back into form in the pro scene. What do you think of Che's throw here?
Yeah, I feel like, very similar to what we were talking about, Val. I feel like this is very characteristic of Che. I feel like the time in Ramona, because I believe he was out there for, an extended period of time, I felt like was like a good training camp for him, obviously throwing in the wind. He didn't throw as far as I would have wished. But, he did throw, I think it was 72, like a couple times. So, like, obviously, that's a really good indicator, I think, just from the psyche. Like, seeing throws go that far is always a phenomenal thing. And it's like building off of that time in Ramona, that's only going to put you so much further, going into a stadium and, making sure that your technique is dialed in and really hitting a phenomenal toss like this. Like, I feel like Ramona was that setup, for, our top athletes to go out and just be them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think just like technique wise, like it looks good. I think if anything, he might be working slightly longer into the finish on his right side. But it's still like one of those things where he's still going to get after it. He's still going to, really attack. And, 70-meter toss is phenomenal.
Yeah, especially as your opener in the Diamond League season. Like, any 70-meter throw in stadium is just a feat in itself. So, well done, Che. I think he's setting himself up for a big season. The European Championships are going to be interesting because it's going to be him versus Stahl, and then we'll see where Alekna's at post-op from his surgery. I know he's back. I think he's starting to back training again. I think he's pretty much healed in regards to he can use his arm again, but in terms of him actually competing this season, probably unlikely. But that's where it's going to be up for grabs come the European Championships. And then we have another huge Diamond League performance as we see Rajindra Campbell, who is still considered for Jamaica, apparently breaking the Jamaican national record, new personal best, 22:34 here to win this competition. This was the same competition that Ryan Krauser also threw at. And Ryan, I think, threw like 21:40.
Something like that.
So Ryan was basically, and I'll just say this briefly, Ryan did say that he is still recovering from injury. He hasn't been able to train as much as he probably would wish he could, but he probably had a good payday. I think he got second place here behind Rajindra.
He got third.
He got third? Who got second?
Jordan Geist.
Jordan Geist. Okay,
yeah,
my apologies.
Geist, yeah.
But he still won this by a pretty sizable margin.
Yeah.
So Rajindra here, he threw well at the World Shot Put Series, I believe he got second to Roger Steen. And new national record for Jamaica as it currently stands. That's a whole other can of worms. I'm not really sure where he and Roger Stona stand because it seems like Turkey, World Athletics might be blocking their transfer to Turkey. I'm still very confused about how that works because if it's the case that he is required to stay with Jamaica, it now shakes up the whole preview and predictions for what's going to happen at Commonwealth Games, because that would be his biggest meet of the year if he's able to compete. But 22:34 here, new personal best from Rajindra. What do you see on this throw?
Yeah, no, I think this is phenomenal toss. Obviously, the whole allegiance thing is very confusing, and it's kind of this like gray area where it's like, all right, he tried to transfer allegiance, but now it got blocked, and now this is a record for Jamaica, which is like,
well, I think to be fair, so like I'm pretty sure Jaime, when she threw 73, despite that being 2 years removed from her leaving Cuba, still counts as the Cuban record. So I think it's wherever your last competition was and whoever you competed for, that's the country you're still labeled as under World Athletics. Maybe. Until you officially transfer allegiance.
Maybe. I don't know, but yeah. In terms of like the toss, obviously it was great. What do you think he's doing? What do you think he's doing here? I just feel like he just does a really good job of getting over his right. It's something that Dane has been talking a bunch about, just out of the back, really setting up that right side so he can get nice and wide with his left, which puts him in a really good stacked position in the middle, which allows him to just catch deep into his power and just transfer everything into his finish. Now his right might have been just a little tight at the front, and that's why it looks like he shifts just a little bit into the finish, but 2 out of the 3, like that's, executing 2 out of the 3 things is still pretty good. And, obviously, like, Rajindra has been on a ball as of, the last, like, couple years where, like, his technique is getting more refined. His movement patterns are more consistent. He's obviously strong. He's very phenomenal. And all of that is getting transferred into, his toss. So it's like, in his performances. So it's like the more that he can do it, he's just going to keep climbing, and just be one of those guys who he might be the next guy, into 23.
That would not surprise me at all. I think, especially doing that this early in the season, I think Rajendra's ready to go very, very far this year. I'm talking 2250, maybe 2260 plus. And I think what you said about 23, I don't think that is unreasonable at all. I think he is that type of athlete.
Next, like, couple years or so, all it takes is one.
And now we have a new New Jersey state record, one of the farthest high school girls discus marks in history, 184 feet, 5 inches, from Hannah Newfer, who we discussed on, I believe, last time's throw show. Huge throw. I think back then her PR is like 177, so adding a couple more feet to her PR, 184 feet. She's actually the second athlete to throw 180 plus this year, as well as Massey. And yeah, dude, like it's very far away to see, but like, you're very plugged into the high school scene. You're mainly a high school throws coach. From what you can see here, what do you think of this throw? And what do you think of Hannah's development, and maybe even what we could expect from college? Yeah,
dude, no, Hannah is a phenomenal talent. I'm very familiar with what she does. Technique-wise, I follow her. She does a really good job of just, kind of talking about what she does and highlighting her training. In that last video, and I was actually talking to Taman about this last night, where we were talking about all of the boys who throw over 200. What do? They all stay long. Hannah's a good example of that on the female side, where it's like, dude, her arms are super long as she's going through. She catches the discus deep and just launches, into the finish. Obviously, this was a huge toss, 184 for a New Jersey state record. I think the really cool thing is she had 3 tosses over 180 within this series. I think her first one might have been like 170 plus, but her second through 4th attempt, they only got 4 attempts for whatever reason. Her second through 4th attempt were all over 180. So it's like, all right, she's in really good shape. She's the defending champ from last year's New Balance. I'm sure she's going to go to New Balance again and, try to repeat.
I think one aspect here is with her being from New Jersey, this may have been the state championship. I know with New Jersey, they have multiple divisions, like way more divisions than Pennsylvania. They have their state champion, but the meet that they really care about, at least the top athletes, it's their meet of champions. And that's, I think, maybe another week away. And the meet of champions is where all divisions, all bets are off. They determine who the best athlete in New Jersey is at the meet of champions. So who knows? Maybe she could even add more distance to the state record come that meet.
Yeah.
Well done, Hannah.
Phenomenal job.
Oh, and look at this. We're going to get into Sam's athletes as he just coached at the Pennsylvania State Championship. And what we're looking at right here is a highlight reel that you made of all your athletes competing at this year's states. The shot put, the discus. We're looking at Sofia Rivera right here, who was a double champ in the shot and discus last year. Unfortunately, on the discus day here, the day 2 of the championship, you guys had to deal with like almost torrential downpours. So a lot of the distances were a bit lower than maybe you guys would have wanted, but also that was across the board. That was pretty much every athlete who competed in that competition. But the highlight of the weekend for you was you have continued success with Olivia Nocker, the sophomore sensation that you've been coaching. She threw 49 feet earlier this season, which should be the Pennsylvania sophomore class record. But she comes out here, throws 46 feet to win her first outdoor state title. Explain to me how it feels to do that as a coach, and what do you think of your athletes' performances from this whole weekend?
Yeah, obviously, Olivia, phenomenal talent. She works extremely hard, and it was one of those things that we talked about very earlier on, going into her sophomore season. It's like, hey, what do we want to do? We want to throw 50 feet. We want to win as many state titles as possible, and we want to try to win a national title. And, we're very close to doing all three. Now, we won indoor. We won outdoor. She's very close to 50. She threw 49, and we have New Balance Nationals in the next couple weeks. So we're very close to making all three of our visions a reality. She's obviously leading the pack just in terms of results. Sophia is a very close second. Sophia finished second in the discus. As you can see, it was raining, and she finished third in the shot, which, was pretty good for her, with what was going on with this season. I think as a whole, I'm, very happy with the performances that we had, especially with the athletes who went to the state championship. They all showed up. It was a very tough competitions. Yeah. A lot of the athletes who competed at this, they all showed up. It wasn't just just our group. It wasn't just a few select, across the board. This year's PA State Championship was one of the most competitive, which made it extremely fun. It's like, all right, all of this hard work that we put into, all of the time, sweat, tears, all of that made this so much more grand. And, me as a coach, I'm sitting here just I got popcorn, I was having a blast, just watching, Olivia only won by a quarter of an inch.
Man.
The girl who got second, she threw 46.7 and a half, and Olivia threw 46.7 and 3/4.
And what's crazy is if this wasn't an American high school meet, they would have thrown the same distance.
Yeah.
Basically in metric, the centimeter is a quarter of an inch is smaller than a centimeter, so they would have probably been marked at the same distance.
Yeah. Olivia would have had the better second mark.
Yeah.
She had a very good series, but it was just wild. But just, being on the outside, just watching these guys just go out there and do their thing, it was awesome, to be a part. It was awesome to see, and, I was very happy with this weekend.
And, I think one thing that I want to highlight here is, Sam, you got a lot of athletes that probably wouldn't have expected by most people to even make the state championship. And to me, I think that is a good sign of a good coach. And kind of take me through, that this coaching is not only available to, people here in Berks County in Pennsylvania, but it's available across the world. People can actually train with you online. And I think what I really like about what you do is you work with athletes at every level. Dane primarily works with our professional and highly, highly elite athletes. But you kind of run the gambit from athletes like Olivia, to athletes like Olivia. Olivia with an O, not Olivia with an A. And it's like you do have athletes that's like just making it to a state championship is the goal.
Absolutely.
Kind of take me through, like, how is it you accommodate those athletes, and what could athletes expect if they're interested in training with you online?
Yeah, so, obviously a big goal for us is taking the resources that we have as, professional coaches and professional athletes and just making it simple for that next set of athletes to, understand and to really kind of dive into. A big mission of mine is paying it forward for the next generation of athletes because, it took me a very long time to get to where I'm at. And I still think there's a lot of things that I can improve on and, continue to build. But, for this next generation of athletes, it's like, hey, you can, get to where I got to at half the time, right?
Yeah.
Half the effort, all of that, just with the right tools. And that's one of the things that, we're providing here at Throws University and Garage Strength. It's like we're providing the tools for these athletes to be successful, at the quickest rate.
Yeah.
Obviously everyone's, slightly different of what they need, but that's one of the things that we do a really good job of. We can accommodate whether you're a beginner, whether you're a more advanced athlete, whether you are a collegiate athlete, post-collegiate, or a master's athlete.
Yep.
There is a space for anyone who wants to get better in the throws, and that's something that we offer that you can, pick up right now at throwsuniversity.com.
Yeah, and we have different tiers based off what your price range is or what you're looking for out of a coach. Like if you're more looking just for technique work, you can do that. But also it's like you can do the run the whole thing and, kit and caboodle of, technique, weight training, analysis, like that communication. I think you do a really great job with our online clients. I don't have any online clients to show here, but we had a lot of athletes from across the country do very well at their state championship this year. Several state champions. So I think that's just like a testament to your ability to get those athletes better and communicate with them online. And, to go with that, if you're a coach that likes the throw show and you've been watching, we also have resources for you as well. We have several coaching books. Actually, I have some books right here. Through the power of editing, we have our books that are great resources for coaches. I believe this is
First, we have cues and corrections,
Yep.
which highlights just common errors and gives technical focuses. I think this is the number one book for all coaches and athletes. Next, we have kinetic comprehension, which just lays out the biomechanical breakdown of the throw. So it just talks about each position and what the body should be doing. And then lastly, we have the ultimate throws assessment, which just kind of highlights some of the details that, allows athletes to become great. So, sleep, nutrition, what training should look like, what your thought process, mobility, there's a lot of valuable information in here. And these are books that you can pick up today at throwsuniversity.com.
Yeah, and these books were designed to help coaches be better. Or even if you're there's a lot of times, especially in high school throwing, where you don't get a traditional throws coach as your coach. They need someone to help out, and it could be a parent or it could be another events coach who's just learning about throwing for the first time. We also made these books to help you guys bridge the gap between learning about the sport for the first time and getting your athletes to actually perform in the sport. So you can check out all these books at the link down below at throwsuniversity.com, as well as sign up for training with Coach Sam Weeks. All this, again, is at the link down in the description at throwsuniversity.com. So we hope to see you there. So now we're going to move on to the NCAA portion of the show. We have a lot of big throws that happen in the NCAA, but to start off, I have to discuss some unfortunate news as the dual threat of Tariq Robinson O'Hagan, as well as Akoma Odeluga out of Ole Miss, have been injured post SEC competition. Tariq was basically a front runner for not only the shot put but also the hammer throw, along with Texas Tanner, and he's a multiple time NCAA champion in the shot put. So he was going to be my expectation to win the whole thing, but unfortunately both of them got injured post SECs, and now it changes the whole landscape of the women's shot put, the men's shot put, and the men's hammer. Kind of just briefly go over what do you think of this, and how do you think this affects the NCAA championship coming up?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. It's nothing anyone wants, both from an athletic standpoint and a coaching standpoint. It's very tough to see, two of these dominant figures kind of go down, especially as we get this much closer to the NCAA championship. It's just one of those things where it's like it's super tough. But, I guess looking at the bright side, like it does kind of just open, a lane for someone new to emerge. Now, obviously we do have guys like Texas Tanner who has, kind of been on the upper echelon of just the throws climate, especially in the NCAA. But I feel like there are a few other athletes who, especially as of recently, have really kind of been, making a name for themselves and kind of just putting themselves out there where it's like, hey, now that the top dog, literally the top dog in the NCAA is out, like you have a better chance of, becoming top dog, making your name or creating your story. Acknowledge me, like, being acknowledged. But I think just going back to these two, like it's something that, I wouldn't want to wish on anyone. And, I do hope that, they have a speedy recovery, so that they can. I know Tarek's a senior. I'm not too sure if both of them are seniors, but, hopefully post-collegiate, they're in a spot where.
I think she is a junior.
Okay.
But I think the issue with Tarek is he might be done because of how many meets he did his senior year.
Yeah.
So I don't think he can argue a red shirt.
I think he's, like, done, and that's
sad.
It stinks.
Yeah, but I mean, he's going to walk away as one of the most dominant throwers in the NCAA history.
Yeah.
In terms of just, like, the amount of titles he won. So I think we should honor the fact, like, I don't think he's gone 70 feet yet, but it's like his level of dominance and ability to compete at major championships can't be ignored.
No.
And he's going to carry that through, I assume, into a professional career. And it'll be interesting to see, like, he threw really far in the hammer this year, 77 meters. So it'll be interesting to see, like, does he continue the double or does he want to lean one way or the other between shot and hammer?
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see. Unfortunate news, but it opens it up very wide for people to swoop in at this year's national championship. And speaking of dominant performances leading into the NCAAs and likely the front runner for the NCAA championship this year is Axelina Johansson. She just competed at the Big Ten championship where she set a new personal best. I believe this is a new Swedish record, 1997, just 3 centimeters short of 20 meters. She's gone in for that 20-meter throw, and I think she can do it. I think she's very, very close to breaking Jada Ross's NCAA record here. At 1997, one thing to add on is she was the surprise bronze medalist at this year's World Indoor Championship. So that she has the big-time competition experience to perform when she needs to, and she set a personal best there as well. Mm-hmm. But I've glazed Axelina's technique for years. What do you see on her throw here? And what is there anything she can do just to get those extra couple centis for that 20 meters?
Yeah, I think I'm on that same boat where it's like, she has really good technique. We've talked about several times before. I feel like on this toss, she does a really good job of getting to the middle, which puts in her slightly better position at the front. I do think she slightly shifts away from the finish, but like, even in so, she's still pushing with that like slight shift.
Yeah.
So I would say if she was like neutral a little bit more, maybe she'd get a little more driving. But it's one of those things where it's like you're in competition, like you kind of just have to trust in your preparation at that point and really just kind of go out there and just focus on executing. And I feel like she's been one of the best in the NCAA of just doing that. Like, yeah. I remember earlier on, like I was talking like, hey, it looks like her right's a little short, and then she's super far over. She's falling away from the finish, and it's like looking at this, like, yes, they cleaned it up, but it still could be improved upon. But like, you just got to go out there and compete. Sometimes you gotta. It's like that trade-off where it's like, I gotta go. Like, I want it to be perfect, but I can't.
You gotta
always,
compete though. You gotta be an athlete. You gotta be an
there's
athlete.
There's no style points in throwing. Like,
no.
If you have good style, like, yes, it's going to lead to efficient movement, but at the end of the day, like, you got to go.
You got to compete, and Axelina's doing just that. It's exciting. So she has 2 meets left. She's going to have they would be in the West region. So they'd have the West Regional and then NCAAs. She still has to make it out of regionals. Like, she can't just, like, she should make it out of regionals, but it's like, you never know. Some athletes... sometimes things happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, with those 2 meets left, obviously she's gonna just do what she needs to get to nationals from regionals. But it'll be exciting to see what she does come NCAAs, because I think she's ready to go over 20. I think she's ready to go super, super big. She's been building to this moment all year.
Absolutely.
Well done, Axelina. And I wanted to highlight this because I think we missed this on earlier throw shows. This happened a few weeks ago. This is the current NCAA number 2. Unfortunately, it is not going to be competed because this is Akoma, who we just said was injured. But this is her personal best, and this happened earlier this year at 1923. And I just want to at least highlight it because this is a huge throw that we missed. And, she was clearly ready to do some damage this year at NCAAs. Just kind of briefly go over, like, what do you see on her technique here? And she does start differently than Axelina does.
Yeah, she has that... what is it? Shift? Offset, that's the word.
Yeah, the offset.
She has that offset, but what I really like, and this is the technical model that I'm working towards, is that left arm really opens and guides towards 3 o'clock. If we're thinking about the back being 12 and the front being 6, that left arm gets nice and wide around, gets to 3, and then holds at 3 as the right gets down and the left gets around the right. The way that I coach here, that's what we're shooting for, where it's like you're establishing that position. As that right's getting down, you're holding, and that just creates separation between your upper and lower body as that left gets around and down into the power position, which just allows you to catch the shot super deep.
Yeah.
And if you catch the shot deep, you're going to work it on the longer path, resulting in more energy being transferred into the finish. And I feel like that's exactly what she does here. So I personally love everything that she's doing. The offset, I don't really coach, but if you can make it work, you can make it work. But outside of that, dude, like, she's nice and long, she catches deep, she just works the ball into the finish. This is exactly what a coach would want.
One thing I'll say to this is you can tell she's a John Smith thrower. She just kind of starts and attacks the entry very much like Raven did. Mm-hmm. And one thing I'll notice is, like, I just notice how bent she is throughout the whole throw. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, that's John Smith trying to get that, like, probably 600-pound squat into the throw. Because if you know anything about John Smith, he just gets at throwers very, very, very strong, to the point where you can't believe that they're as strong as they are. And I can just see, like, how his style of lifting impacts the way he coaches technique.
Yeah.
But it freaking works.
It works.
It freaking works, man.
It works, man.
Yeah. Huge, huge throw. And then this next one is now the new front runner for the men's shot put. This is Ben Smith out of Oregon. He's only a sophomore, throwing 20.88. Mm-hmm. And did he get second at indoor NCAAs, or he got third? I know he was, like, up there in the indoor NCAAs. But look at this series. Every throw over 20 meters that's marked. 20.88, throwing almost 21 meters. I'll be honest, his technique is so simple. And Blue Trick just knows how to coach throwing, man. Like, he just knows how to get great athletes to be, like, the highest tier elite. Mm-hmm. Like, he did it, He was probably going to do it with Lekna. He did it with Yorinde. He did it with Jada Ross. And what I like is just how simple his movement is. He's a lefty. Dude, I think Ben is going to go so far in the NCAA.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to tell you what I think he could throw, but I think he can throw a fair amount farther than this. Mm-hmm. But what do you see on this throw here? 20.88. And now that's the current NCAA lead.
Yeah. Bouncing off what you said, it was like one of those things where it's like when you, as a coach, it's like you have your technical model and you know exactly what you're looking for with the athletes that you're working with. And, naming the athletes that you just did, it's like they all move relatively the same. And I think the biggest theme about all of them is it's super simple.
Yep.
Right? It's not anything crazy. It's not anything unorthodox. Yes, each athlete might have a slightly different style of how they interpret the technical model, but at the end of the day, like, it's super smooth. It's everything that, you know, you read in the books, everything that you watch, you know, in the technical breakdowns is exactly what his athletes are doing.
Yep.
And it's like one of those things where it's like when you get really good at making techniques simple, that's when you can focus more on just execution of just the patterns and the positions and obviously the power transfer. And that's when you're going to have the best performances.
And it's not even just Ben here. There's also Kobe Lawrence at Oregon who's thrown over 20 meters indoors.
Mm-hmm.
Their team is stacked at Oregon. Like, it's going to be crazy to see. I don't know how long, you know, Blue Trick is looking to keep coaching and how long he wants to stay at Oregon. But, like, he's developing one of the deepest squads in the NCAA, like, right up there with, like, I think Justin St. Clair probably has the deepest squad right now at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
But he's starting to develop something very similar here at Oregon. And I think one thing I'll just say about Ben before we move on, what blows my mind is that how he can catch the shot back when it looks like he has it so far in front of his chin that I'm, like, surprised he can get as much stretch on his pec to deliver the ball the way he does. I don't know how you do it, but you do it.
Yeah.
So, like, I just wanted to at least voice that because I've been trying to think in my head, like, how do you do that? But you do it.
When everything else is dialed in, you know,
Yeah.
you can have that one thing that's different, but I don't know.
No, great technique.
Figured it out.
And speaking of Justin St. Clair and his throwers, this one is huge because I was not aware about this until I talked to Chris Van Niekerk over the weekend. This is Henu Lamberti out of South Africa. He's a true freshman at Nebraska. On this throw, this is 2018, but he has the number 3 throw, I think, in the NCAA right now. He threw a little bit further at the meet after this, which was, like, I think 2029. So we don't have video of that throw, but I at least wanted to highlight his 120-meter throw. And he's a freshman throwing 20 meters at consecutive meets. Throwsflation, man. Throwsflation. What do you see on his throw here? And just, like, dude, the fact that Nebraska, I think, has 2 or 3 20-meter throwers right now in the men, and then they have Axelina. And then they have the other South Africa, I think Mina de Klerk, who's thrown like 1850. Like, bro.
Yeah, no, it's wild. I think the glaring thing to me is he's a little blocked off.
Yep.
So
he's blocked off, falls away from the ball a little bit, and still throws 20 meters.
And still just works just into the ball as best as possible. And, yeah, like you said, is still throwing 20. So it's like, dude, imagine if his left foot is a little bit deeper. You know, he's going to stay a little more balanced, and then that's just more energy being transferred into the ball. I think even though he might be blocked, like I said, he's still working very long. Like, yeah, he's pushing away, but it's not like one of these. Like, he's still on the ball as he's slightly, you know, shifting. But it's just one of those things where it's like just that minor adjustment is just going to help him, you know, elevate to even a further toss, which is wild to think.
And that's where I'm thinking, like, come nationals, like, dude, there's a bunch of guys that are relatively close to each other in distance. So it's like, yeah, Ben Smith is the front runner, but it's anyone's game.
Yeah.
And
whoever shows up.
Maybe we see a true freshman walk away with the title. That would be something in the men's shot put.
That'd be insane.
That would be insane. But well done, Henu. And, dude, friggin' Nebraska is just they're so dominant. They're such a good team, and clearly, like what we said about Oregon's system, they all throw kind of similar, and it's because it's simple and it works. Like, don't be cute with throwing, guys. Stick to the basics. Yeah. It's gonna get you far.
Yeah, it's gonna get you so much
in
further.
Multiple ways.
So much further.
Okay, so now we're gonna go to the men's discus. This is the number 2 throw in the NCAA behind Texas Tanner. This is it
Shamar?
Shamar Reed, right? Yeah, Shamar Reed. So this is Shamar Reed out of Florida State. We talked about him earlier this season throwing 62, but he goes here and wins ACCs throwing 65, 87. massive toss. And what I learned was Ralford Mullings also has eligibility this year.
Yeah.
So the returning NCAA champ, who I think has only done one comp this season, this is going to be an interesting battle because Ralford went 69 meters last year to break the NCAA meet record. But we now have Shamar here throwing 65, and we have Texas, who went 69 at Ramona, but then backed it up throwing 66 in Long Beach. Are we going to see 65 meters be top 3 at this year's NCAAs?
I think so.
Yeah.
I believe Texas had another meet where he threw 65 just recently. So
I mean, of course he did.
Yeah, Captain America. But going back to this toss by Shamar, dude, like, this is a phenomenal toss. Like, once again, very long. You could tell he's a very dynamic athlete and just gets everything into the finish. I think, looking at the video, you see a slight wobble, like, immediately into the release. So it's like, okay, if he gets a cleaner release on it, that might be like another half meter to a meter. Like, it's very quick.
Yeah.
Because he's very dynamic. It's very quick. So it's like a slightly better release.
He reminds me of Texas in a way that you can just tell he's a twitch factory.
Yeah. You could tell he's a total athlete.
He's wound so tight.
Just total athlete.
Well done, Shamar. Dude, I'm excited because now it's like, who's going to win? Men's discus. It's now a toss-up. It's like, do you go with the veteran and Ralford, or do you go with the young guns and Texas, who's just been blowing up in every event he does?
That's a phenomenal question.
I think that I'll just say this about Texas. What blows my mind is he just seems like he should be inconsistent because of how he moves. Like, he looks like he just goes reckless abandonment on his throw, but he just consistently catches one that just goes. And that's where I'm like, hey, man, like, we were talking about how style doesn't matter. It's about what the distance. That dude consistently is able to make that movement work.
Yeah. But something like that with a movement like this with Shamar, it's going to be kind of tough. Like, you might get one, but, like, if you have someone who's super dialed like Shamar is with this one, like, his movement's super clean, it's going to be very hard to beat that.
I mean, I'll say, if I was a coach, my preference would be Shamar's technique.
Yeah.
But I can't argue with results.
You can't argue. Numbers don't lie.
And the numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie.
And that spells disaster for you. I sacrifice. But another throw that we missed was Ryan Johnson. This is number 2 throw in the NCAA for men's hammer, 77-64. I wanted to cover this briefly because we have talked about Texas Tanner's leading 78-meter throw in the NCAA. But this is number 2, Ryan Johnson out of Iowa. He's, of course, the reigning weight throw indoor champion, throwing over 25 meters. What do you think of Ryan Johnson's throw here, and how do you think this sets him up for nationals?
Yeah, no, it's going to be super competitive. I feel like Ryan, obviously, phenomenal weight thrower. Those guys who do really good in weight, typically do really good in hammer, as long as their technique stays fairly consistent. I feel like the way that Ryan worked the weight, is very conducive to being, good with hammer technique. Obviously, he's continuing to climb. He's, continuing to have good performances. And I feel like men's hammer, is going to be a good battle as well. I feel like across the board, all of these athletes are just doing things that just make us like, just the anticipation of what's to come. It's like super high. And I feel like even on men's hammer, like, with this toss and obviously, Texas, like, we keep talking about him. It's just going to be a clash.
We should have an NCAA watch party. There's a lot of these events I'm like really want to watch. Like,
yeah.
A lot of them are really like have me very intrigued, including the men's hammer. Because like, dude, between him and Texas, if either of them go 80 meters, I'm not going to be surprised.
That'd be insane.
I'm not going to be surprised. But that's the level of talent we're dealing with. And,
honestly.
Yeah. Well done, Ryan. Hope you. I think you can go even further this season. Even though you did this like a month ago, I think you can go even further. This one was one that also I missed out on. This is Zaza Nnamdi out of Texas A&M going 84-68. This is the current NCAA lead in the men's javelin. Dude, again, like I'm looking at this guy, another clearly tell Twitch factory, like lean, muscular, super explosive. what I love is how commonplace 80 to mid 80 meter throws are in the NCAA now. Because like when I was in college, you maybe saw one guy throw 80 meters once a year.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing multiple guys throw 80 meters, and you're seeing guys throw well over 80 meters.
Yeah.
I love that men's javelin is really starting to pick up. I know Curtis Thompson has been leading the charge in the U.S. to develop the men's javelin. But to see those athletes picking it up in the NCAA and really just having it seems like there's just a much better understanding of the event now than there was 10 years ago.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's across the board.
Yeah.
One D3 Nationals just happened this past weekend, and one of the kids from the conference of the school that I went to, he threw 73 meters.
Hell yeah.
That's ridiculous.
D3?
A D3 guy,
D3, yeah.
73, and I think the winning toss was a kid from Rowan. We messaged before. He threw 74, which I think was like second all-time D3 record. But it's like you're seeing all of these javelin tosses just progressively getting better, at all levels. Like obviously this is a phenomenal toss at the Division I level, but once again, like these are Division I athletes. They have the resources, they have all of that to, facilitate a toss like this, a performance like this. But I feel like when you're looking at the scope of javelin as a whole, the results are getting significantly better, right? I feel like in previous years, it was like javelin is kind of like, the bottom of like the other events.
Like you would see shot put and even hammer regularly have distances that would be competitive on the world stage. You'd rarely see that in javelin.
And I feel like that just completely just twisted, and it's like we're getting better marks and we're getting dudes and women just absolutely going bananas, and it's good for the sport. It's good to see, and just as a spectator, as a coach, like I absolutely love it. And it's one of those things where it's like, please, it's like NCAA championship, just please be something to just go crazy. Like,
so I don't have this athlete's throw on here, but have you heard about the one jav thrower that's making noise beyond just the track and field world?
I need more context.
The JUCO national champion, LeBron James.
Oh yes, okay, yes, LeBron James, yes. I'm sitting here like, where's he going with this? Yes, LeBron James. Yes, I did see something. I was
he threw I think 77 or 78 to win JUCO nationals.
I was gonna say I was scrolling. Obviously, I see LeBron James, and I was like, okay, like I was familiar with LeBron James. Because it's LeBron James. Like, how can you not be familiar with LeBron James? But, yes, no, I did see that.
But, dude, he's starting to build up a career. He's young, too. So it's like, who knows? Maybe the dude's going to take up the King's mantle. Dude. He might, we'll see where he's at in the javelin, man. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe he was born for greatness.
With a name like that, dude.
But I want to at least bring that up. But real quick before we end up here, like, what do you think of Zaza's throw here, at least in the finish? I know it's hard to review jab technique on these videos, but like, what do you think of his finish here and just him throwing 84?
Yeah, no, just like very quick. I know he has the rap. I've always liked the rap. I've never been able to coach it. Just because like I like to just keep things simple, but I know from the experience of talking to athletes who have done the rap and coaches who have done the rap, it's just creating just a little more stretch so you get a little more zip into the finish, slightly longer pull. Obviously that's something that Zaza did here, and was able to help him really just get everything into the finish. This one's truly more of a style thing. You don't necessarily need to do that to throw far, but if you can do it and, do it well, you're going to get a little bit more. So just off of that, obviously it's different, like watching it as a spectator, like different style, but he just gets everything into the finish. And, as a javelin thrower, that's the biggest thing. It's just making sure that you can work through double support, get a nice long pull, and transfer all of that into the finish.
Absolutely. Well done, Zaza. Ooh, and now we're going to get into the USATF Throws Festival in Tucson, Arizona. This is actually filmed by a mutual friend of your and I's. This was filmed by Sheldon. And Sheldon was part of the crew to help film this competition, along with a contributor to Throws University, Andrew Saylor. And he captured a moment. This is Rachel Richeson setting a new personal best of 78.95. So this is number 6 in the world. I'm trying to think, is this number 6 all time, or because I feel like she is? Yeah, she's got to be on the. No, it has got to be, because when she went 78.80, that was number 5 all time. So this is number 6 all time. This is insane. Rachel is having an incredible season. I feel like it started in Ramona last year, and she hasn't let up the gas. Mm-hmm. She has just reached a new level of hammer thrower. Like, she is not the same athlete she even was a year ago with the consistency she has. So I think it's incredible to see, Rachel 78. We're talking a mark that could win a world championship.
Yeah.
What do you see on Rachel's throw here? I know we've talked a lot about her on the throw show, but what do you think she, is doing now, or her training that's, got her to hit a new personal best, pretty early in the season?
Yeah. This is completely kind of off topic, but I just love Rachel's pop-offs.
Yeah.
I love it. She's so animated.
Yeah.
I love it. But going back to the technique, obviously we've talked about it plenty of times where it's like, her first 2 turns are kind of just getting into it, and then 3, 4 is where she really just goes into overdrive. And I feel like that style of throwing has always been really good for her. Obviously we've been talking about her in the weight. We've been talking about her, when she was at Notre Dame. Like, I do remember vaguely talking about her, like, oh, like, this is the next one up. And ever since that point, each year has been getting progressively better. And, Rachel is, becoming one of the more consistent at the upper echelon, especially in the U.S. And it's just one of those things where it's like, dude, when you're on a roll like that, it's hard to be beat.
Yeah.
And, like you said, like 78, like that could win, and it's like, yo, if she keeps doing what she's doing and just, continues to build, continues to progress, like next year, like it's up.
Dude, we might have like 4 active 80-meter throwers in the next year or so. Like with Cameron, with Brooke, with Deanna, with Rachel. I mean, and then you just keep going down the list. It's like, as Annette continues to bounce back, like Janae, like, oh my gosh, dude. And the thing is, they're all still young enough to still make progress and hit PRs. That's the crazy part. Well done, Rachel. I love talking about you on the throw show. And like Sam said, your reactions are the best. And we're going to stick with the USATF Throws Festival. The biggest throws I felt like really did come from the hammer this time. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing a friend of the show, Rudy Winkler, have another meet over 80 meters to take another gold here at this meet. 80-88. Rudy just knows how to make it happen. And he's the most dominant U.S. hammer thrower, I think, at least in terms of consistency at 80 meters, probably ever. Mm-hmm. He's still chasing that international medal, but I think I just know he's going to get it. He's too good. But he broke the American record last year throwing over 83 meters. He's getting ready for the Prefontaine Classic, which will happen in about a month or so. Mm-hmm. So that'll be a big meet. That's where he hit the American record last year. What do you think of another meet here? I think he made their 78 meters at Drake, but 80 meters here, I'm pretty sure this is a new season's best. What do you think of his throw here?
Watching this throw, it's like turns 1 through 3 are so rhythmic and so smooth.
Yeah. And
on turn 4 just gets into it. Like, I don't know if you see that, but it's just like, well, 80 is pretty much like automatic at this point, but it's like, all right, just smooth, get the ball, move in, boom, 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 and then just gets into it on 4 and just super long double support, just right into the finish. Like, mm-hmm. I feel like, going back to Rachel, like that's what Rachel does really well. She does 3-4 where, in my eyes, in my opinion, it looks like Rudy really kind of just gets into it on 4. And I feel like, I don't know exactly what Rudy thinks about or like is working on, but it's like, dude, if you're, getting through it nice and smooth and you're, building this just orbit and this continuing of energy, it's like when you really attack it like that and you can stay, while maintaining good positions, that's where it leads to, very far tosses. You know what I mean? Like thinking of Cam and I'm drawing a blank. Ethan.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I was drawing a blank there, but it's like when you look at those guys, like they are attacking, but they stay nice and long. They're super smooth, and everything just goes into the finish. And it's the same thing, like looking at this toss with Rudy. It's like he's nice and long, he's going through, but it just on that last one, it just looks like he's really kind of just finding just that attack mode, and obviously that's what you want, in my opinion.
No, I mean, you're the expert. I love it, man. I love when you break down throws like this because you're just giving the audience so much better context to what they're seeing and how they can implement these strategies into their own throwing. So I love it. Well done, Rudy.
Absolutely.
Keep it up. And then another throw I want to highlight. This is going to be the last throw we discuss before we get into an interesting topic at the end here. But Daniel Stahl sets a new season's best, 69.01 here in Europe. And, this is going to be part of the conversation we have following this. Does an open field. Interesting. But 69 meters here from Daniel. We know what Daniel can do at any competition. He has he is the second farthest thrower ever for a stadium throw behind Alekna. But he's done it when it really counts at World Championships.
Yeah.
So we know Stahl is one of the best competitors. He's arguably the greatest discus thrower ever, depending on how you want to attack that conversation. But great throw here for Stahl. What do you see on Stahl's movement here that athletes can take home with them?
Just very smooth.
Yeah.
I think Stahl has some slightly different quirks with his technique, more so his footwork.
Yep.
Just where he's landing. But even in that, dude, just look at the fluidity of his movement. Like, there is no hesitation. It's just...
Well, going back to what you said about Hannah earlier, and you said about this with the high school kids, it's just look at his arms, how long they are the whole time. And you've talked about the T position before.
The T position with the upper body.
Yeah. And it's like, if you also say, yes, he moves slightly different than other athletes. But if you look at the principles we always talk about, being long on your finish, being in double support, being grounded, having your arms long, getting a good catch position. Daniel Stahl's doing all of that.
He's doing that. He does a phenomenal job. Like I said, the footwork is slightly different, but just the fluidity of it, like you said, the T position, the long arms, all of that. And that's the characteristics of a phenomenal discus thrower. And Daniel Stahl is literally like just about, the definition of a phenomenal, like just when you go to the dictionary, you look at phenomenal, it's just a picture of Daniel Stahl.
So he's a 3-time world champion and Olympic champion. So he has 3, yeah? 2019. Yeah, 2019, and then 2023, 2025. Yeah, that's crazy, dude. So this sparks an interesting conversation, though. So this has been the talk of the throws world. It's been talk of Garage Strength Gym for the last day or so. Over the weekend, World Athletics has made a ruling basically talking about traditional athletics facilities is the only time they'll take automatic standard throws. I believe it's the A standard for distance. For them to accept that, if you're not in have a certain world ranking for a world championship, it must happen at an approved athletics facility, is the way I understand it. And basically, a lot of people are calling this out, that this is attacking Ramona by saying that if athletes go out to Ramona, Oklahoma to hit up the A standard, it doesn't matter. They need to do it at a facility. I don't know what they mean by traditional athletics facilities. And the problem with that is, are we talking about a facility that just has a track? Does the circle need to be inside of the track? Does it need to have stadium walls of a certain height to prevent any sort of wind? Well, I can tell you this right now. There's a lot of countries in the world, and there's a lot of athletes that compete in those countries that don't have access to facilities like that. Even the United States, there aren't many facilities that have a full stadium to throw discus in. Like if you look at this year's national championship, it's going to be at Icon Stadium in New York. Sam and I have both been there to watch discus before. The whole one side is open.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing that's going to prevent wind from attacking. So does that mean a facility like that, our national championship in the United States, is not an approved athletics facility for the discus throw? These are all questions that we don't have answers to, but I at least wanted to bring it up that it's like, people want to talk crap on Ramona. They want to talk crap on athletes who go and chase wind. We know this is nothing that's new. You listen to Mac Wilkins talk about him, getting in a van with Brian Oldfield and like Art Burns and other discus throwers, and they're driving up and down Southern California looking for meets that have the best wind based off the weather report that day. So even though it's not new, and we know a lot of these old records, especially the former world record from Jürgen Schultz, the former American record by Ben Plucknett, all done in wind. What is your take as a discus thrower, as a professional discus thrower yourself, like on the idea of these new qualification standards? And do you think that Ramona is part of the reason why they made this ruling?
I think Ramona is exactly why they made this ruling. Now, why? I'm not 100% sure. I would really like to do a little more research before, I give I don't want to give a baseless opinion. You know what I mean?
Well, let's give it the opinion based on the current information we have, but we'll make it very clear that we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And I don't think World Athletics has done a great job at actually providing those answers.
Not as of yet. I know there was an article, I think it was a technical rule book, where things can be explained a little bit more, but I haven't had the time to look into that. But just initial thoughts, it's in my opinion, it's lame.
Yeah.
Ramona has done a phenomenal job of giving a lot of access to, favorable conditions for a lot of athletes. And it's not just, the top echelon athletes. They have competitions almost year round, almost every weekend that anyone can sign up, for. I've been seeing a lot of conversations, not this weekend, but just prior to this, where it's Ramona, people are having issues with getting out there, and it's kind of limited, where it's that's not true. They have competitions always. If you're truly a professional athlete, you'll figure out a way to get there. You can find the resources, you can figure out how to get there. Now, with this ruling, it's okay, for our top guys, it's all right, now you have this limiter, and it's just because I was reading some of the comments, Joe Brown had a really good discussion point.
Doesn't he have a second home in Ramona?
Yes, Joe Brown was able to make the Olympics. He threw 65 at trials.
Yep.
And I personally believe that moment was built off of all of his performances at Ramona. Yep. Obviously, he hit the standard at Ramona, which is phenomenal, but he still had to show up on that day, which he did, and I called in the card that he was going to be the guy. He was dangerous. Don't let him get all six. But I think because he was able to get in phenomenal shape at Ramona and do what he did, that set him up to go and compete at his best at the trials, which earned his spot into the Olympics. Now it's all right, we're removing that, standard, or we're changing the standard of how you can qualify. Now an athlete like Joe is in a sticky situation, because now, he's going to have to focus more on the rankings and whatnot. And, from what I was reading, there aren't as many opportunities in the U.S., for our top guys to earn points and change their rankings and whatnot.
So here's the problem. When people want to say, what if people can't get out to Ramona? Well, what if people can't get out to Europe?
They can't.
That's the issue. It's you're saying that people can't get... What if they can't get out to... Dude, okay. Besides the world being what it is right now, relative cost to go to Tulsa, to fly into Tulsa, and a 30-minute drive to Ramona is not that expensive. But it's most of the competitions in the world that have the ranking requirement you want, that you care about, they're all professional level meets, and they're all in Europe. Mm-hmm. They're all in Europe, and not only that, you already need to be established as a professional thrower with an agent to get you into those meets. Mm-hmm. But if you're just a thrower on the come up, you have no chance to compete in any of those meets. You can't just sign up for a silver level meet and just go there. Yeah. That's not a thing. So if we're world ranking, I totally get it. I think it makes it more fair as a system. But to eliminate the auto queue rule, what do you do for athletes that aren't? And here's the other thing: most meets have limited slots, so you can't just make every thrower who has the ability to be a professional thrower a professional thrower. Mm-hmm. They have to earn it by competing in lower level meets. Mm-hmm. But if none of those meets count for qualification, then you're basically setting a standard that only truly professional athletes are eligible to qualify for major championships. And what does this do for smaller countries? Like, that don't have facilities? Like, I think of, athletes in Africa or athletes that are like in the Caribbean, athletes that like that live in lower income countries that don't have the facilities that meet these requirements. And it's like, now you just are opening up a brand new can of worms, and now you're basically making throwing like an exclusive club. It's like, unless you know the right people to get you into those meets to get points, you might not ever progress beyond a certain point, because you might throw far, but you're not throwing far at the meets that matter, and no one lets you in those meets.
Yeah.
So, like, at least Ramona was a consistent place, an option that people, like you said, with athletes like Joe Brown, had a chance to grow and develop throwing farther distances. And it's like, I don't know, man. But the whole thing that gets me is, look at how many athletes that perform well in Ramona that went on to carry that out to perform well at future competitions that matter. Like Alex Rose, Matthew Denny, like Roja Stona. Roja Stona threw his PR before he went to the Olympics, where he PR'd again. Like, all of these athletes who had the opportunity to grow and develop at Ramona, like, I don't know. Again, what you said earlier, it's like, we don't have all the information. But I think where I'm really concerned is what is going to be the standard of a traditional athletics facility. Because the only thing I can think that you can do to include the standard that eliminates Ramona, but doesn't eliminate people's ability to qualify, is it has to include a track. Because how many stadiums are there that are actual stadiums that have walls high enough to prevent wind in the discus throw?
Yeah, not many.
Hardly any, relative to the amount of just general open tracks there are in the world. So it's like, now you're talking about exclusivity with Ramona. Well, now you're making it super exclusive. And when you start talking about the points total, well, now you can't even compete in America anymore. Now you have to go, and that's athletes in Asia, Africa, South America. All the big meets are in Europe. So it's great for the Europeans, where World Athletics is housed. But what does that mean for the rest of the world?
Yeah.
I think these are questions we need to ask ourselves. And these are questions that you can respond to in the comments below, because we want to keep this conversation going. It's not going away.
Yeah.
This has been something that people keep criticizing Ramona about. I think people in other events who get way more publicity, it's easier for them to talk crap, because they just don't want to even involve themselves with throwing. So they want to look at it from a surface level, outsider's view. And they don't really understand the logistics that actually go behind a ruling like this. And I think that's where these are things we need to consider. And one thing I'll say before we close out is I got a comment that kind of annoyed me. So I posted, I've been posting Sam Mattis's American record series, and we just posted Dane's analysis of his American record throw last week on the Throws You YouTube channel. If you're interested in watching that, just go to the Throws You YouTube channel. You're already there on the Throw Show, and watch that video. It's very, very good insight on how to throw very, very far from Sam's coach, Dane Miller. And one of the comments was basically just like, oh, you guys are calling out Ben Pluckner for taking drugs, but I'm just not so sure. And it's like, your athletes are competing in wind. Like, what does it really matter? And it's just like, one, Ben Pluckner competed in wind when he threw 72. But not only that, the dude tested positive like a week later. That's why World Athletics doesn't count his 72 as the American record at the time. So, like, we can say that we know Sam's clean because we train with him all the time, but I understand, to anyone on the outside, I understand being skeptical. I'm not going to criticize anyone for being skeptical. What I will say, though, is to say that someone who was tested on part of the reason why Ramona's great is it's basically negating. It allows the opportunity for clean athletes to take down those world records, which should not be world records. Like, you're going to tell me that Jürgen Schultz was clean when he competed for East Germany? Like, let's be real. Like, come on. So let's just be honest with ourselves of, like, what do we want this sport to be? And if we want to add more regulation to the sport, great. But you need to do it in a way that's actually going to benefit the athletes. And do it in a way, like, you can't just clamp down a ruling like this and just be okay. Because here's the thing. It's almost like World Athletics has throwing despite itself. It's like they don't want it to even be a part of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this ruling gets a lot of throwers offended, because we already feel like the redheaded stepchild of track and field as a whole. But this just kind of really cements, like, we don't want to be the kid living under the stairs before we go to wizard school.
Yeah. I think also along the lines of that, it's like, with this new ruling and the standards still being as high as they are, it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh yeah, they increase the standards like so significantly.
It's still higher, and it's like, if you're making this change, you know, like a place like Ramona where, you know, better performances come through, why is the standard still high?
Dude, I have my own thoughts on this, and this is getting very political in terms of how track and field operates. I just really don't think people that run World Athletics want throwing to even be in the sport. And that's Jason's take. That's not Throws University's take. That's not Sam's take. That's my take. Because I'm just looking at their actions. And their actions say a lot. It sounds like that they don't want the sport to prosper.
Yeah.
And it's on us, people like us in the media, you a coach, to try to spread the goodwill of throwing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it's a fun sport. It's a fun sport to watch when people actually get a chance to watch it. And the athletes have their own stories that need to be shared. And we hope that, you know, you guys get to experience that, you know, along with us, as Sam and I try to tell some of these stories on the Throw Show. You know, we want to build up the culture, and we want to build up the community of throwing. But, you know, not just that, we also want you to become a better thrower. And, you know, that's why Coach Sam Weeks has his programming on throwsuniversity.com. That's why we have these books that we have here. Unfortunately, I can only grab one. I still have a messed up arm. But, you know, for coaches, for athletes, you know, for people who just love throwing, we hope you keep tuning in to future episodes and keep watching our videos, because, you know, at the end of the day, we just want all throwers, everyone out there, to drop some bombs. Peace.